Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Clerk. It is 7:01. It's General Committee for Tuesday, November 3rd. I'll ask council members if there's a declaration of any pecuniary interest. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Mayor Daw and Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if we could waive a procedural bylaw and have a member from the ad hoc committee delegate tonight, Mr. Tim Jones.
Certainly. Would someone care to, would you put that as a motion?
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor?
Which ad hoc committee?
The Community Volunteer Recognition Awards.
I think that's just an addendum to the agenda.
Mr. Clerk, could you help us out here, please?
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, the waiver of the procedure bylaw is required because the request for the delegation was not received prior to 4:30 yesterday.
All right, so it is moved by Councillor Maracas to add it, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Are there comments, questions? Councillor Perry.
Just want to confirm it'll take place after H.
We have confirmation? Yes.
Sounds
fine.
great. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe I should claim a pecuniary interest on a new item that was added this evening, item 11,
Thank you very much.
My husband
we did
works.
just, okay.
on the fire department.
Okay, thank you. So, so note, and when that comes up, thank you. On the waiver procedure, we need 2/3. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Now, do we have a motion for the?
It's as amended.
Any further comments on the agenda as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. I'll start to my left. Councillor Perry.
Items number 5 and 6, please.
5 and 6. Councillor Kim.
Mine was pulled.
Thank you. Councillor Tom.
Same with me.
Councillor Humphreys. And moving to my right, Mayor Daw.
I think perhaps item 4, which is the 2016 calendar.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Councillor Thompson.
Item 3, please.
Item 3. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 7.
And Councillor Maracas. Might as well. Thank you. Thank you for the coffee. Okay, Mr. Clerk, you could just read back for us the items that were pulled to confirm.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I have items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Thank you very much. Could I have someone move an adoption of all the items not requiring separate discussion? Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. And we have a delegation or two. I would like to welcome our first delegate tonight, former Deputy Mayor Bob McRoberts.
Mayor Daw, councillors, and staff, my name is Bob McRoberts. I have lived a block away from McMahon Park on Catherine Avenue for over 60 years. I played in the park as a kid. I played with my kids in the park. Now I walk my dog through the park once or twice every day. I can remember cows standing in the field where the garden is being proposed and a small creek running through that field. John McMahon donated land to the park, to the town for a park in 1915, exactly 100 years ago. I am opposed to a community garden being located in McMahon Park. You may say NIMBY. I say NIAP, not in any park. The survey went to homes within a 400-meter radius. Those people already live in houses with front, back, and or side yards for growing vegetables. So maybe it's POB, put in your own backyard. I'm surprised the town is willing to consider providing these residents with even more land. Perhaps the survey would better discover a true need by being sent to only Aurora's apartment and condo dwellers. My condo-living daughter says if I wanted a garden, I'd live in a house. I agree with the concept of providing some land for a community garden, but I do not agree with the location under construction or under consideration. McMahon Park is certainly not underutilized. It provides tennis courts, lawn bowling, a picnic area, swings, climbing apparatus, soccer field, parking lot, space for a pickup baseball game, and is frequented by adults, children, and dogs. The dirt pathway was being so well used, it was recently asphalted. People meet each other and enjoy themselves at this park, even without a community garden. When I hear the term community garden, I tend to think of a beautiful garden full of plants and flowers that might serve as a tourist attraction, like Edward Gardens or Bush Gardens. I suggest to you that some of those whose survey indicated support thought this too. When I went to visit Aurora's community garden in the summer, I was shocked to find standing water, dripping taps, broken fences, and 23 of the 50 plots untended and full of weeds. Such sites don't belong in any neighborhood park. With 46% of the plots untended, I find it difficult to understand why there is a wait list to garden there. Is a second community garden really warranted? I'm sure the gardeners all started with great enthusiasm and good intentions. Over time, human nature sets in. As people's lives change, so do their priorities. Vegetable patches take a lot of time and energy to maintain. People are more apt to look after them if they're in their own yards. A friend of mine who had a plot in the garden by Jack Wood's house and who has a plot in the current garden told me they're not a pretty sight and they attract rodents and raccoons. One of the photos my neighbor sent to you back in August showed rodent traps set in the current garden. Many of my neighbors would agree that our neighborhood raccoons seem to survive quite well already without us adding to their food source. I took a few pictures of the current garden as well. Here's a picnic table on the screen engulfed in weeds. However, this next photo bothers me the most. This is right at the entrance, and on top of that barrel was a knife left behind by a gardener and lying on the barrel. So I would suggest there's a huge safety and liability factor in providing a community garden, especially in a neighborhood park. Fences could be put up around the garden, but fences will be climbed over. Kids in parks climb fences. When my son was little, he was a professional climber. McMahon Park is already a beautiful, well-used, much appreciated green space. Please put the vegetable patch in some yet-to-be-developed lot, as is the current one on Industrial Parkway, not smack in the middle of an established neighborhood. Please don't divide our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Could I have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Kim, are there any questions to or comments to the delegate? Thank you, Mr. McRoberts.
Thank you.
Could I have a, we're going to vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Our second delegate tonight is Mr. Jim Tree, manager. I'll just clarify, item B was withdrawn and item C was added. It's on the addendum. That's all right. Our manager of parks, Jim Tree. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Tree.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. It's a privilege to be here tonight to talk to you about some of the things that we like to talk about a lot. This is the tree removal and compensation policy. We have been working over the last year to develop urban forestry policy in the Parks and Recreation Department. It goes back to recommendations that were in the urban tree study that was conducted in 2014. For the new members of council who were not here to review and approve it, the previous council approved the iTree urban tree study, comprehensive document about the state of affairs of our urban forests, the value of trees, a number of recommendations that were in the study. If I can figure out the technology on this thing. Thank you very much. So part of the urban tree management plan, which is a large document, it's very comprehensive, it took us the whole winter to put together, will be coming to council as a separate package, and we're looking to do that sometime later this fall. It is the balance of the policy document, and basically the policy document is made up of a lot of past practices, things that we've been doing for years in the department, and a lot of the recommendations that were in the urban tree study. We've taken those further and developed policy as it was recommended to do. The reason we think we need policy and the rationale behind it is basically for development-related applications, minor variance applications, wherever there is a net loss of vegetation on lands in the town of Aurora. It is separate from the tree bylaw. It's more to do with land use, land development, because the tree bylaw deals with private trees outside of development applications. We would implement this policy in the case where we have a developer coming to town wanting to remove trees in order to build subdivision, minor variance applications where there's additions going on homes, large areas of trees being removed. Currently, we don't have good policy. We have practices. We've taken those practices and reworked them and put them into policy. The policy is compliant with the official plan. The official plan speaks directly to compensation for lost vegetation in town of Aurora on private and public lands. And it's in order to sustain and increase the tree cover in the town of Aurora over a long term. There are targets in the urban forestry policy that we'll bring forward that suggest how many trees need to be planted in order to get a net tree cover over the town of Aurora. And currently it's 28%. What did I do? Okay. Some quick facts about our canopy. All trees have a value for the environment. It could be said that there are invasive species in Aurora. That's true. Things like Manitoba maple, buckthorn, Scots pine, those are known as invasive species. However, they do contribute to air quality and carbon sequestration. All this information has come out of the urban tree study that was done in 2014. I've highlighted some of the more interesting facts. We have 1.95 million trees. That's a total of 99 square kilometers of total canopy area, covering approximately 1,369 hectares. I won't go through them all. They're all there. You can see. The most interesting thing is that, as I said, all trees contribute to the environment. They store carbon, and they sequester carbon from the air and then store it. So these facts and numbers that were produced are all based on scientific evidence and studies that were done, high-definition aerial photography, and they've been done for a number of municipalities. So we're pretty confident with the numbers, and it's all based on facts and the science behind the program. Wrong way. Okay. We said that our forest canopy is the greatest in Aurora out of all of the municipalities that have participated in the U4 study. Sorry.
Mr. Chief.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, if you've got it.
This is the last slide, and it's a very interesting one in that, yes, we are the highest density of forest. It's partly to do with our countryside tree cover, but it's still, something that we can build on and make better. The report that we have submitted to you tonight, we're looking to bring that forward to council for approval. So just to present it tonight, that's the reason I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tree. Could I have someone put a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Tom, Councillor Kim. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Through to Mr. Tree. Mr. Tree, just to touch on one point, you talked about that this would have ramifications for development applications. I know previously the questions come up with regards to subdivisions and our tree bylaw, and the answer was that the tree bylaw would not be would not count towards anything that was subdivision. Can you just sort of explain how this would differ and how it would, especially for plans of subdivision, what impact it would have?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the tree bylaw deals with a homeowner, a private property owner, that requests to remove more than 4 trees in a calendar year or 12-month period that are over 20 centimeters in diameter. Through a development or planning application, the bylaw exempts those type of applications from the tree bylaw, so that it is a separate process. We would deal with that through subdivision agreement, a site plan, or other tree-related agreements. The Planning Act removes it from the process. So our opportunity to comment on that and requirements of the developer to compensate would be dealt with through a site plan agreement or a development agreement. The policy allows us to be very consistent with how we measure and compensate for the loss of trees, as opposed to individual agreements and arrangements and negotiations. It is good policy to establish at least a baseline for what we believe is reasonable compensation.
I appreciate that, and I commend you for coming forward with a policy. I think it is important that we always have a consistent approach, so thank you for that.
Thank you, and we are to the presentation because this will be an item that we'll be discussing. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. A lot of residents have commented on the loss of trees with the development of the 2C area. So a policy like this would be meant to, we're mostly developed now, but it would have helped in that kind of a tree removal during development?
Mr. Tree?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it would help in enabling us to, rational compensation value for trees removed. It wouldn't prevent necessarily trees from being removed.
No.
But it would certainly establish the rules and the policy in terms of how you replace those trees or how you compensate for those trees. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Tree. All those in favor of receiving? Opposed? That carries. We have Klaus Wernberg.
Jim's doing the pedestrian underpass first.
Oh, excuse me. I'll let Klaus go. Klaus?
Except he's got 2.
Excuse me, it's been brought to my attention that I called you out of order. Klaus, Mr. Tree will go, and then Mr. Wernberg, you'll proceed. So Mr. Tree, you're going to delegate on another matter before us tonight?
I'm back.
All right.
Yeah. The second thing we like to talk about a lot, trails. In this particular presentation, we're going to talk about trails basically in the 2C development plans, and more particularly the underpasses that have been identified in the Trails Master Plan. This is a long tenure project. We've been dealing with this for a number of years. There are some difficulties in understanding, sometimes even for us, what has transpired, but this will summarize what we believe has transpired to date in terms of the underpasses, where we are, and hopefully bring everybody up to speed and where we need to go and what will happen with underpasses. The region of York is widening both Leslie Street and St. John Side Road. They are both Near-term projects, 2016, I believe, is St. John's Side Road, and Leslie Street is 2017, contrary to what I think it says in some of these slides. That was an error in communicating with the region recently. Needless to say, it's happening very quickly, and we are looking at 2 underpasses that have preliminary council approval. That would be underpass C and underpass D. Underpass C being the furthest north blue circle you see on Leslie Street. Underpass D being the furthest south blue circle you see. Those are tentatively funded by council. It was approved in principle with 50% cost sharing with the region of York. We have since heard more recent information from the region of York that that deal is still alive and well. However, the engineering estimates of the cost have increased, and we've outlined that in the report. Underpass B, you'll see, is to the west. It's the furthest left when we're facing it. That blue circle is a overpass on St. John's Side Road. That will be a free span bridge, clear span bridge, opening underneath, and a trail can actually pass underneath that. The region is constructing that in concert with St. John's Side Road widening. No cost to the town on that one. Underpass A, which has been the topic of a lot of discussion with us at the Trails Committee, staff, even with the council, has been ongoing, and the most recent direction from council was to study that underpass to verify the costs, to see whether it was feasible, and determine what was in the way in terms of actually building it and the finances required to build it. We did that. We went and hired a consulting engineering firm. They've been working with the region. It's taken quite some time, but they have developed a concept on it. It is feasible, it can be done, and we've provided the cost for you. So I've just gone over the history. I'm not going to repeat any of this. It stands for itself. The preliminary cost estimates have been completed. There is an increase in underpass C and D, as we have indicated, and we've included the cost for underpass A. The dates in these slides, as I said, I think I've got them backwards in discussion with the region. At any rate, they're both nearing completion. We need to make a commitment to the region late this fall as to whether we are going to go ahead or not with underpass A, D, and C. We have to make a commitment in order to get them into the tender and to get them out in the bidding. The rationale is basically it's all policy within the Trails Master Plan. We are following policy. That's why we're recommending we proceed. It's simply a policy document at this point. Public consultation that was part of the master plan work that we did in 2 terms of council ago. Trails are very, very popular. The town citizens suggested overwhelmingly that there should be more investment in trails, improve trails, make them safer, more convenient, more user-friendly. Most recent master plan that's ongoing at the moment, same thing has been said. 91% of the respondents strongly supported more investment in trails. Heavily used trail system is very popular in Aurora, as I think council knows. And so it seems that there's good rationale to proceed with this project. And that is it.
Thank you, Mr. Tree.
Answer any questions.
Could I have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Tom, Councillor Humphreys. Comments, questions to the delegate? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Tree. Mr. Warenberg. Mr. Warenberg is going to be speaking on 2 matters. The first one is on McMahon Park.
Could I suggest that maybe I turn that around just to follow up on this one, because it would make more sense, I think.
Thank you,
Otherwise,
Mr.
we have to switch
Okay,
all
Mr.
the time,
Warenberg.
okay?
Is 5 minutes good?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Thank
will
you
be
very
okay
much.
with this, yeah. Okay. The underpasses were already shown there before. So anyway, my name is Klaus Wernberg. I live on Cedar Crescent in Aurora. I'm in agreement with the recommendation of the report to go ahead with the 3 underpasses but would like to add some remarks that are supportive. In Aurora, trails are a desirable recreational amenity. That was evident from a survey conducted during the Trails Master Plan development, and again from a survey conducted during the ongoing review of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. 91% of survey respondents in the September 2015 survey want the town of Aurora to spend municipal dollars on trails more than any other recreational amenity, 91%. And they're at the top of the list, and they were at the top of the list 5 years ago. In this survey 5 years ago, the respondents also indicated similar preferences. But in a question that was not asked now, sidewalk users were asked if they would switch to alternate off-road trails if they were available. 96% would switch. So sidewalks are a very poor second choice, no substitute for trails at any rate. Relative to the proposed underpasses, they are the type of investment that is trail-related, in which 91% of Aurorans would want the town to invest dollars. But not only will these trails crossing the widened Leslie Street be for recreational users, but for commuters as well. In fact, the commuters will likely outnumber the recreational users. A goodly number of the residents who are moving into the homes now being built on the west side of Leslie Street will want to reach the planned places of employment, which will be on the east side of Leslie Street. There will be 8,000 residents, that's the plan anyway, on the west side, and 6,000 employment places on the east side. How much more compelling a reason could you have to make the commuting back and forth convenient, inviting, by putting in the grade separated crossings of Leslie Street, the underpasses? All three underpasses will be keys to getting cars off the road, to foster self-propelled traffic and reduce road congestion. The stuff we keep talking about but seldom implement. We're not doing anything about it. Here's our big opportunity to really make a difference. Once you have made the choice to put trails into valleys, not on buildable tableland, then you have an obligation to build underpasses across wide roads, which are several stories above the valley floor, literally, they're up there. Ramps up and down to street level will be a significant discourager to use those valley trails. Trails underpasses are dealt with in the Trails Master Plan in a very compelling manner, short of being prescriptive, just short of that. The Leslie Street reconstruction provides an opportunity to include trail underpasses at incremental costs added to the road construction costs while the road is being constructed. As a result of the substantial increased costs associated with standalone projects, a similar opportunity to provide traffic-free crossings for pedestrians and cyclists, for 8,000 of them, will not present itself again. You can forget it during our lifetime. It's just not going to fly because of the cost. I urge you to take advantage of this opportunity and follow the report's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warrenberg. Could I have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Maracas. Comments, questions to the delegate? Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Klaus, thank you for coming out. I just had one question. You spoke of the numbers you gave us was 91% and 96%. I was just wondering if you had a total number of respondents for that?
Yeah.
Instead of percentages?
I don't have the surveys in front of me, but no, I would have to go by memory, and I can't give those things. I have them in a plan that I don't have with me.
Okay,
I have a draft document that gives me those figures, and I know, naturally I would know the number of respondents from there, but to be honest, no, I cannot. No,
Perhaps,
The Director of Parks and Recreation might know how many responded.
Mr. Chair, could I maybe get Mr. Downey?
certainly, I
to
think we can
answer that?
indulge.
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey,
To you, Mr. Chair, 871.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you so much this evening, Mr. Weinberg, for coming this evening. I still remember the meeting when we were first new at the council previous to this, and your advocation in terms of trying to get this understood by council and realizing the value of it. And thank you to your perseverance and your passion, because we're could be proud of this because it was you that showed us how valuable this was and realized that we almost missed the opportunity. So thank you so much for continuing your passion. We all benefit.
Okay, thank you for appreciating that.
All right, we'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Weinberg. And you're now going to delegate again.
That's the only way we can put it up. Okay, I'm reading it out anyway, so, okay. This is about the community allotment gardens. And, again, I'm bordering McMahon Park. I'm one of those who was right next door to this area. I'm not in agreement with the principal recommendation of the report. The survey results show that 52% of the respondents are in favor of having the allotment garden. There are 85 respondents, by the way, I can answer that now. In a democracy, the majority prevails. Please now look at this overhead from Aurora's Parks and Recreation Master Plan. This is the current master plan, section 413. That section states, and I'm going to, you won't be able to read it anyway, so I'm going to use this one. It has one section here where it says, allocating space in municipal parks for allotment gardens is being done in more and more municipalities. That's one of the things it says. Then it says in the last paragraph, it is recommended that the town facilitate discussions with groups which bring forth an interest in developing an allotment garden program and secure a site for the purposes of a community allotment garden on a trial basis. Exactly what we have been doing so far. It also says if sufficient demand for the garden persists, that means you start out with a trial, after the trial period expires, additional sites should be secured using a combination of municipal and community funding with the understanding that the town will have minimal involvement in the establishment and operation of the gardens. Exactly what we are proposing. We want to have the town with minimal involvement. We would like to administer this. We have the experience, and we can assure you that there will be a quality garden out there. Anyway, let me go on from that. That is the master plan that sets that out. With such proposal having been brought forth, the one that they talk about in the master plan, and with 52% of support by the greater McMahon neighborhood, and emphasizing greater, not the narrow thing and not the privileged few who surround this park, I would like to know why the proposal would not be allowed to be implemented on a trial basis. One of the alternative options in this report, by the way, is just that. We are aware of the concerns and undertake to respect them in both the setup and the future operation of such allotment garden, and respectfully request that our capacity to implement will not be prejudged on the basis of negative examples and thoughts for which we cannot be made responsible. I will have to say that I would even be willing to give up having a lot altogether, just to administer it, and I'll take a lot that will be for the benefit of the food pantry in Aurora, that I would operate, and I would then give the food out to them. A hose out of the back garden could, for the first year, be sufficient to provide us with water. We don't have to go into construction from water from the tennis club building. It can be provided on a volunteer basis, gratuitously, because I don't think it's going to be a lot of cost at all. But that is the way you could see what we can do and what, in fact, the fears are preventing us, or just about to prevent us from proving. It is this type of scenario. I have given nobody any reason to doubt that I can pull this off, and I'm not alone. I have Catherine Cook, who's going to speak next, who is experienced. I have been in permaculture gardens. I've been in community gardens where cooperative ventures were done. We planted together, we harvested together. I've been in the Aurora Food Network garden on a trial basis because somebody else didn't want a lot at the time. And I'm in Newmarket in the garden because I couldn't get a lot at the time in Aurora. I'm also in Shepherd's Bush, where there's not success to be had because there's too much shade there, and there are black walnuts next to us. And some of us in the McMahon neighborhood, I'll finish off then. Some of us in the McMahon neighborhood don't want to cut down these black walnut trees that are all over the place, and they are pretty bad in terms of allowing anything else to prosper. They have a poison system. Anyway, I'm going to finish it. I would like to see it go ahead on a trial basis with the indulgence of the council. Anyway.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Warrenberg.
you.
Could I have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Perry, Councillor Kim, comments, questions to the delegate? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Warrenberg. We have two more delegates. Next is Catherine Cook.
Mr. Chair, members of council. I'm Catherine Cook, a resident of the area of Aurora, where the community garden is being proposed. For more than 10 years, I have managed community food gardens throughout York Region, and in this capacity, I have seen how community gardens play an important role in food security, healthy eating, community development, and environmental stewardship. Recently, I was pleased to hear that 25 people who filled out the town survey expressed an interest in receiving a garden plot. This speaks to the enthusiasm there is for community gardening in our neighborhood. I would like to point out that the survey report did not mention this important statistic. Essentially, 30% of survey respondents want to belong to this garden. Further, the report states, residents who would possibly be most impacted by the development of the garden are those residents who directly back onto McMahon Park. I think we can all appreciate concerns from local residents about the unknown, but over time, it is those neighbors who participate in and benefit from the garden program who will be most impacted. The report states, it is clear the majority of residents who did respond do not support the garden. I would like to emphasize that this statement applies only to the property owners that bordered the park who responded to the survey. Not all bordering residents responded. Most importantly, the majority of survey respondents, 52%, support the garden. Yet this statistic is not emphasized in the report. Another statement reads, many comments were significantly critical of the proposal, and it was made abundantly clear that the McMahon Park would not be an acceptable location to establish a neighborhood garden. As we know, the majority of people disagree with that, 52%. And this is an acceptable location. In fact, it's an excellent location. It bodes critical factors needed for successful planting: full-day sun exposure, viable soil, water access, available space, and close proximity to participants. Concerned voices about soil quality, drainage, etc., perhaps may pose challenges, but are easily overcome using simple gardening strategies. It is great that people have become involved and expressed concern, because this can inform the process. Those who took the time to visit the local Aurora Community Garden produced a flyer which depicted unflattering scenes of the garden, and I don't disagree. However, the photos were taken towards the end of the gardening season. Leaves turn brown, plants die. Also, the ACG also allows gardeners to erect fences. Some of these fences are not attractive. I would suggest that the McMahon Garden has a policy of no fences as a matter of courtesy to the bordering properties. In Kingston, with a population perhaps 2.5 times that of Aurora, they have more than 20 community gardens. The gardens are embraced in the neighborhoods and seen as integral parts of their sustainable community. There are people here who are concerned, as most of us are with change, but it's a garden. It's not a tennis court with lights on until 11 p.m. or a soccer field that will bring cars by the dozens to Cedar Crescent. We can try to resist change if we want, but one really has to ask, how is it that a garden could divide neighbors the way the survey report suggests? I would like to emphasize the 2 succinct points Klaus made in his presentation. We are a democracy, and the majority of people support the garden. The Parks and Rec Master Plan supports the development of community gardens. Finally, thank you to the town for taking the time to conduct the survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Could I have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Maracas, Mayor Daw. Are there any comments or questions to the delegate? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm sure it was brought to our attention earlier, but can you refresh our memories and tell us the size or the area of the community garden, please?
The area of the community garden that was suggested in the survey, you can't see it here, but it takes a larger area than what we would have. The area that we would have would be approximately 1,200 square feet, the area of a small home. It's to accommodate 10 gardeners, and we would imagine that each of the gardeners would have about 100 square feet.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming to see me, Ms. Cook. And I know that you do a great job at the original community garden. I believe it's still there on Industrial.
Yes.
It's still thriving.
It is.
Yes, and I had the pleasure of going to some visits. I think from your perspective, you mentioned something about no fence policies, and is this a common, sorry if you don't mind through you, Mr. Chair, is this a common practice in terms of other community gardens that you are aware of? And
Through you, Mr. Chair. I used to work for the York Region Food Network that operates the Aurora Community Garden, as well as the Markham Community Garden and Newmarket Community Garden. The Markham Community Garden is different to the Aurora Community Garden. It is what I call a neighborhood garden. It is in a neighborhood, much like we're proposing with McMahon Park. The Aurora Community Garden, however, is in an industrial area. We did not have fencing in the Markham Community Garden, simply because what happens when you have fencing around garden plots, people tend to make them their cute little property away from home. And to some people, the additions to their garden plots might be considered quaint, eclectic, but to others, it might be considered untidy and unkempt.
thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. And I think that's what, there's probably a large concern about that, but if there's some policies put around, the appearance and the upkeep and so on, and people running the garden, without that, I think there may be a different, it's just understanding that. But thank you very much, and I do some great work where you are at the other community garden, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Ms. Cook. We do have 2 more. We have Chief Lang is next. The chief has asked for more than 5 minutes, so is there a councillor? Okay, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Thompson. 2/3 majority to extend the chief's time. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was thinking I was learning something tonight. We could have talked for the first 5 minutes on the operating budget and the next 5 minutes on the capital budget. I thought that's a pretty good way to go. I will try to get through this pretty quickly for you. To my rescue tonight will be Mr. Elliott if we need some further explanation on the numbers. But This, in fact, is the budget submission for 2016 for Central York Fire Services. It was presented to the JCC and recommended, and is here for your comment tonight. And then from there, it goes to the town of Newmarket. So the 2016 operating budget, bottom line on that is an $833,000 increase. That increase includes the items on your screen. Economic increase, although we haven't negotiated the contract for 2016 and beyond, we have put in an assumption of a 3% for the association members and 2% for the management and staff from the town of Newmarket. It also includes step increases for a total of $55,000. When we bring firefighters on, they take 3 or 4 years to progress through the ranks, and each year some of them move up in the class. We have also requested 4 additional firefighters, and it's part of our long-term strategy to provide another fire apparatus in the central area of the town to provide much needed protection, timely protection to the residents in those new areas. And we have eliminated 1 part-time position. So our total just for the wages and benefits portion is $833,000 of the total allocation. As I said, it's $833 for the wages, and you can see the total increase in the budget is $886. So the wages and benefits component take up a fair bit of that. We have, in fact, come up with a program that will help us to smooth out the swings in the prices and the allocations to each community. So Aurora and Newmarket share the cost of this fire service, and it's based on criteria. Okay, no problem. Based on the criteria of number of calls and the assessed value of the homes, and we rank Aurora and Newmarket separately, and they break down 100% of the cost. So because we've put a streaming effect in this project, what we've done now is taken the high spikes out. There were several years where there were $100,000 to $1,000 swings because of call volumes and assessment. So you will see at the bottom line of your chart there that the Aurora share has gone from 40.23 to 40.20. So there's been a very slight decrease. But this program that has come up by the 2 treasurers involved helps smooth it out over a 5-year process, and has taken those high spikes out of the annual requests. So there are several things driving the operating budget, as I mentioned earlier, increases in wages and benefits. We've also joined in with the York Regional Police and several other partners. All the fire services in the region are now working on one radio system. That was upgraded in the last year, and we now have to pay for the maintenance costs each year. So that's a component of this, and the 4 firefighter positions. So just to mention again, 885 total increase, 247 is for the new staff, and of that, 586,000 is increases in wages, representing a 3% increase for association workers and 2% for town staff. We also have a $29,000 increase in the allocation cost for the town of Newmarket. The capital projects that we'll be looking to work on in 2016 include a public fire safety education trailer. The Office of the Fire Marshal outlines what types of work that we'll be doing, and the public education and fire prevention are the number 1 and 2 things that the fire service should provide. Obviously, emergency services follows in close behind, but the thought process is the more that you can prevent, the less emergency work that you'll have to do. We're also requesting the replacement of 1 fire truck. It's a 1997 truck. It has well over 200,000 kilometers on it, and it's used as a reserve vehicle now. In line with the approval of the JCC several years ago on our capital replacement cost for fleet, This truck is nearing its 20-year life cycle, and it takes about a year to replace a truck from the time we open the bidding process until the truck is actually built. So this puts us in line with the 20 years life cycle. The platoon chief's vehicle is now currently 4 years old. It will move into reserve capacity. We'll get another 4 years out of that vehicle before we actually sell it off. The bunker gear washer extractor, as you're aware, there's many studies that are related to firefighter cancer, and one of the serious issues that we have to deal with is all the carcinogens attached to our bunker gear, the gear that you wear when you go inside a burning building. So what we're doing now from a health and safety perspective is putting one of these extractors in each fire station and making sure the gear is cleaned regularly to keep our staff safe. We also have a replacement, life cycle replacement of the bunker gear, and so we do a number of sets each year, and we will in fact have a number of sets coming up for replacement. However, you will notice in the chart that there is a 50-50 split between asset replacement fund and development charges. Because we anticipate hiring 4 new people and they are growth related, that the cost of their bunker gear would come out of development charges. Another health and safety issue, we've had fire helmets now from a particular manufacturer for a number of years and had a number of minor complaints with regard to the weight of them and the strain it plays on your neck if you're working with them for a long time. We've been recently made aware that there are several lawsuits in the United States where firefighters are suing the manufacturer of these helmets for a variety of reasons. A traditional fire helmet has a large bill on the back, and we recently had a firefighter fell down, and the only thing that saved his neck was the fact that the helmet popped off, and then that the bill didn't drive his neck forward and injure him more seriously. So we're looking at this very closely, and we are working in conjunction with the Joint Health and Safety Committee, and we will be looking at a replacement helmet that is lighter and withstand the impacts and the fire damage that they are subjected to. The hazardous materials tent, a bit of a misnomer in that it is stored on the hazmat truck and it is used when we have hazmat incidents, but it's also used as a refuge area for firefighters when we're doing rehab at any emergency incident scene. So it provides shade in the summer, it provides shelter in bad weather, and we do store it on that hazmat truck, but it in fact is an integral part of everything that we do when we are working at an emergency scene. The big item on the sheet, and saving the best for last, we have a life cycle replacement request for our SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. These are the air cylinders and breathing devices that we wear to enter into either an oxygen deficient or hazardous atmosphere. The equipment that we have is 2 renditions out of sync with the NFPA, which is the approval agency for these. The last time we purchased breathing apparatus, we were able to purchase some with the proviso that we signed off that it wasn't up to the current standard. However, with the gear now approaching a 20-year life cycle, we are anticipating that it will need replaced, and we have been working with the other fire services in the region to see if we can move towards the type and brand that they have. Long-term approach is it could be a cost-saving measure down the road, and it will be an operational issue that if we work with adjoining fire services that we use similar gear. It helps our firefighters and it helps those that come to help us, or if we go to help them, that we have similar gear. There are several capital projects that we would like to undertake, and obviously for those on the JCC and that have been in conversation with me at all, we are looking for a new fire station location and building a fire station with a training and administration component. So we have development charge money for those components. We are in the process of attempting to secure property at this time. There is a balance of DC funding available in 2017, and I believe the land and design does include the beginning or stage 1 of the construction in the first year. And I believe that's it, sir, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Could I have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Marakis, Councillor Thompson. Questions, comments? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chief, for being here tonight. Just a quick question with regards to the regional radio system you spoke of and the sharing of the operating costs. And forgive me for not knowing the answer, but is that really more from a dispatch perspective? That's why they're all together, or is that also part of the 911? And the reason I ask is, you know, last term I was fortunate enough to get a tour of the new YRP building here in Aurora, and they had quite an elaborate system with regards to the 911, and I was just trying to connect the dots.
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The 911 system is run by the York Regional Police, and it is separate from the fire dispatch system. Currently, there are 3 dispatch centers for fire within York Region. Markham is standalone. Vaughan does Vaughan and King, and Richmond Hill, there are 5 municipalities that contract dispatch service from Richmond Hill Fire. So while we're tied together electronically, that we can get calls dropped from YRP, currently they are separate operations, as is the EMS component.
Sorry, so just so I follow, so when you say the share of the operating cost for the regional radio system, YRP, what were you referring to specifically?
What we do here, the operating costs are, each of the communities are kicking in, each of the fire services, because we're a consolidated fire service, we only had to pay 1 share. So we paid 1/8 instead of each community paying. There was a fair bit of pressure to do that, but we won out. The cost is to do with the maintenance of the radio system as it pertains to fire-related issues. So they've hired a full-time person to do that, and each of the communities are participating in paying for the costs associated with the person or the persons involved with looking after the fire component.
Great, and glad to hear that you were able to negotiate just 1/8.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief, for coming tonight. So there's a lot of replacement equipment that requires replacement, and I'm wondering whether you guys have done research in terms of comparing the replacement times for our equipment versus, is there a benchmark in terms of what other fire teams are experiencing with respect to the lifespan of their equipment? And are we pretty well on par, or I'm sure there's a lot of variables attached to that as well.
Chief
Through
Lane?
you, Mr. Chair. There are, as you say, a lot of variables, like much busier departments, like much larger departments. They can have a variety of different reasons that they would be replacing it. When I talk about life cycle replacement, these are recommendations both from the manufacturers of the equipment and the NFPA certification. So bunker gear has a life cycle of 8 years. After 8 years, your staff shouldn't be in that because it no longer will provide the level of protection that they require. Inside the bunker gear, there are things called vapor barriers so that your body can breathe, but if there is steam, which is generated when you spray water on a fire, it won't come back and scald you on the inside. So annual inspections of the gear is carried out, and this is all tracked through the manufacturers to make sure that we don't exceed the 8-year life cycle warranty. The helmets, again, I believe is a 10-year life cycle. The breathing apparatus, we're not current. We can no longer buy it unless we sign a waiver to say that they're not responsible because we're not buying the most up-to-date equipment. However, it's like anything. It's like apparatus. We're replacing a 20-year-old truck. 20 years for a fire apparatus, when you spend as much as you do to buy them, seems like a lot of money. But if you think back to a car that's 20 years old and it doesn't have seat belts and it doesn't have anti-lock brakes and it doesn't have roll stability control and it doesn't have airbags, you're not protecting the people that are using that every day. So we look at it, and I can tell you from my past experience in my former jurisdiction, we were working towards a 15-year life cycle replacement on apparatus just to keep more current. And there are other methods, and we've spoken at this at JCC, where some jurisdictions will go to a 10-year replacement because you get 50% of the value of your purchase when you can sell it at 10 years. It takes a long time to build up to that, and council has to be relatively well-funded to take on a project like that. But at this point, with a 20-year-old truck, you're probably going to get $1 a pound when you sell it at the auction.
Thank you, Chief.
Is it a heavy truck?
Well, you'd do better if you were getting English pounds instead of weight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comments, questions? Okay, in that favor, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It carries, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. I'll now ask for our final delegate, our former mayor, 4 terms, Mr. Tim Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. On behalf of the members of the Community Recognition Awards Ad Hoc Committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide input. Under the leadership of Councillor Marakis, the support and participation of Councillor Humphreys, Citizens of the Year, Diane Buchanan, Joanne Spitzer, Brian North, Steve Hinder. Steve also having served on council and experienced some events himself. Steve and I also having our experience with Neighborhood Network for the past 8 to 9 years. We've had a lot of perspectives at the table. Thanks to the councillors. I know Councillor Abel, you dropped in and saw us for one of our meetings, and others did. Thank you for your input. Thanks to staff for their support. Our role with Neighborhood Network, and I talk about our meeting, Steve's and my role with Neighborhood Network, is to inspire volunteering. We're in the business of supporting and encouraging volunteering. Volunteers do amazing things. Where would we be without them? True volunteers don't ask for anything. We need to recognize them. 2 reasons come to mind. The first, to thank them for what they do and for what they do for our town. And the second is to profile them so that we can inspire other people to get involved, especially important as we watch Aurora continuing to grow with so many new people coming to our town. It's an important message to our new residents. We need you, and we want you to get involved. I believe the recommendations in the report that's brought forward to you tonight expresses those things. In our consideration of the event, we recognize the need to respect the history of previous award criteria and recognition, but at the same time, tweaking some categories and creating a new one to honor our business community for their business commitment to social responsibility. We as a group also expressed our desire to continue our role to support the organization as this event goes forward. To summarize, this can and should be something very exciting. Our volunteers, our community groups, and our businesses who give of their time and their efforts to support our town deserve it. This is an opportunity for Aurora to do it better than anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Could I have a motion to receive Councillor Marakis, Councillor Thompson? Comments, questions? Councillor Marakis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim, thank you for coming. I just want to thank you and the rest of the committee, Joanne, Brian, Diane, Steve, Councillor Humphreys, for doing an incredible job. We worked with a very tight time frame, and it's amazing what a group can do that's focused, and you guys did it, and I'm proud of you, and I'm looking forward to an amazing event. So thank you, and thank you for coming tonight and speaking.
It was our pleasure, and I speak for all of us. It was an enjoyable project.
Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Marakis and the committee did all the work, and I have to say I'm so excited. I think we all are, but I'm so excited for the community, the residents, the volunteers. The program is going to be exceptional. And I want to thank Councilor Marcus for the way he put it forward. It absolutely followed all policies and procedures of the town, and it's a good, just a great initiative. So I can't wait to get started. It's going to be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, Mayor Doe.
Thank you very much for coming and for your work on this. I have a concern about the awards that were named to honor various people in the community. And the proposal is to eliminate the naming of those awards.
I'm not sure it was to eliminate. We wanted to leave the names in, and we wanted to include in the description of the awards inspired by
Okay.
the. We don't want to lose that history, and we shared your concern. It was a point that was discussed at the table, and we want to make sure that that is remembered. And really, under the true meaning of why we're giving awards, they inspired those awards, and that's why we want to continue that recognition.
So perhaps I'm misunderstanding. It says the policy be changed so that award categories not be named after individuals.
Going forward, we're suggesting that we don't name any award in an individual name, that we keep it a generic, and that all the awards should stay generic. But for those that have been recognized, we want to include in the description that those specific awards were inspired by those people that obviously the award was created for.
Thank you. So we're inspired by, but wouldn't hold their names.
Sorry, we were inspired by?
No, they would. The description would be these awards were inspired by,
The name.
but the awards would not have the name on them.
The actual award is for the topic. It was inspired by the person that, in those cases, I think there was 3 cases where awards were recognized for specific people. We don't want to lose that, so we want to keep it in the description. That was our recommendation.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's up to the table to
Thank you.
determine.
I'm not so comfortable with that one.
Okay.
Councillor Marcus, did you want to comment?
Thank you. I just make a comment that this did pass on consent, so I just figured we just go from there.
Thank you. Mayor Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, former Mayor Jones, first of all, for this engagement, I guess, with the town, but more importantly, for your ongoing engagement. We truly do appreciate all you continue to do for the town. I think it's truly unique. So we thank you for that. I thank you and the rest of the committee, and Councillor Marcus and Councillor Humphreys. We had a kick at this, I guess, about 3 or 4 years ago and changing it, and it was really quite a spectacular evening. So thank you for sticking with it, and looking forward to a fun night.
Thank you, Mayor Dawn, and I'd be remiss without saying thank you to Council for the previous honor from last week. That was I'm moved and I'm touched by it. Thank you so much.
And that would be in reference to the naming of the Tim Jones Trail.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I'm not going to miss the opportunity to thank you all in person. Thank you so much.
Councillor Humphreys has another comment question.
Mr. Chair, I took a walk on that trail. It was awesome. No, just in terms of Councillor Gardner's concern with the naming, I think what I love about it is that the inspired by in the individual, you actually understand the history of why that type of, or category of award was created. Because right now the names are being mentioned, but the history has almost been lost. Not on purpose, it's just so many years have gone by and people are wondering who those people are. So I think it's actually by inspired by, it allows a person to dig and understand what that individual did and meant for our community. So I think from that perspective, it holds a lot of respect to that award. Rather than just a name, it shows the inspiration behind the category. So I really liked it when we were talking about that. So just in terms of comfort level.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Tim, for coming tonight, and to echo everybody's comments, we certainly appreciate all your input and involvement with the town. Just with regards to the Good Business Award, I certainly think it's excellent. It's long overdue, but I was curious, given your long history with the town as mayor, had the town ever previously given out awards to recognize businesses and their involvement with the community?
Good question. I think we've recognized business sponsorships and contributions as they've come in, but I don't know that we've ever had a specific award to do that.
And so I commend the committee for bringing it forward. I think it is long overdue, and we all recognize that, businesses, especially small businesses, play an integral role just as the residents do.
We are a town of small business who contribute a lot.
Thank you. No further questions. I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Tim. And that did pass by consent. All right, Council, that concludes already all the delegates. So we have pulled a number of items. Before we do that, is there presentations by the advisory committee chairs? I'm looking at the chairs, seeing none. I will move then to items of consideration for separate discussion. And I think it was recommended that we move a couple of items forward for those in attendance. And the first one we'll move forward is the McMahon Park, which is item 5. Page 33. Could I have a mover, please, to move that forward? Councillor Perry, Councillor Kim, comments, questions? All in favor? Opposed? We will start with item 5. That was pulled, Mr. Clerk, by Councillor Perry.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm not able to move the recommendation on the table.
Thank you. Could I have someone move? Councillor Maracus, a seconder, please. Councillor Tom. Councillor Perry.
So I have been, from the get-go in favor of community gardens. I think they're a great thing that add to the community as a whole. Ultimately, if this one's not something we want to move forward on, I do think that we should definitely be looking at other locations within the community to place these community gardens. I'll make a motion to that regard when we move around the table. But we've heard that the biggest problem with them is the cleanliness aspect, and I do think it's a valid point that should be addressed, and any community garden or neighborhood garden that we're going to move forward on in future, we should very strongly look at implementing appropriate aesthetic guidelines or policies to ensure that they look up to snuff, because the last thing I would want would be to have a garden in a residential area that is unkempt, that doesn't look great. I think that there are ways to rectify that and fix that to ensure that they do look nice and they add value to the community. And I think ultimately that these gardens do add a great value to the community.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Gardner? Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will support the staff report. One reason is that we don't usually get so many residents in this council chamber, and I appreciate you coming forward and expressing verbally or just by being here your feeling about this. But my other primary reason is that I was involved with the council that established the first community garden. My understanding was that community gardens were to help people who did not have opportunities to garden where they lived and for whatever reason, and therefore needed a place that was sponsored by the community to do that gardening. That's what we have with the York Region Food Network Garden, and I'm all in favor of looking at that and working on community gardens going forward, but that would be my main reason to support community gardens, and there is a tax implication or an implication to the taxpayers on that, to provide gardens for those who are not able to have it in their own homes.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys, and then Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and likewise with the Councillor Gardner's comments and Councillor Perry's. I do believe it's an exceptional initiative. I absolutely do believe them, but I do believe the intent was to have areas where there's people living in apartments or areas that they just don't have the space to have a garden. So I believe that as we go around the table, there is an option 2 here that asks staff to pursue an alternate location for neighborhood gardens. So I would love, once we get through discussions and other people's perspectives, that would be I think, a good option to move forward.
Thank you. I think that's what Councillor Perry was leaning towards as well. Councillor Tom?
I'd just like to also comment that I am in support of the concept of a community garden for the reasons that Councillor Gartner has mentioned and for other reasons. But I think that if it's going to be placed in an existing neighborhood, that a clear majority of people need to be in support of it. And I think we just need to find the right location. So I'm in favor of the concept. Don't want to see it sent to the wayside, but I do believe that the right location is it's still out there, and we can find it. Just it might not be this one.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. Councillor Maracus? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not gonna pretty much repeat what everyone said. I just want to throw out there, total agreement with pretty much everything that everyone said. And for me, I think locating one of these gardens abutting people's backyards is not appropriate in my view. And I mean, I prefer many different locations rather than this one. So that's my statement.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Certainly, I'm supportive of community gardens, as many others around the table are. The question before us here is about a neighborhood garden, and is this the right neighborhood? You know, I agree that it's not the right place to put the neighborhood garden. I think that, you know, we always want to be cautious with regards to any issue that can divide a neighborhood, and this is certainly one of them. You know, interestingly enough, it was a few years ago that we were discussing, you know, the traffic calming measures within this same neighborhood. And if you look at our warrants with regards to the traffic calming policy, we talk about needing to have, I believe it's 70% community support for any of these measures before implementing it into a neighborhood. And so to Councillor Tom's point, I mean, it is important to have a large majority or a clear majority with regards to some of these issues. Otherwise, it does create division. And you know, we want to build community, not separate it. So with regards to, you know, the surveys, and I think it is clear that it is a dividing issue, and so there's no clear majority or large enough support to garner it in this particular location. But I'm certainly open to the concept of looking elsewhere, other spots, other potential opportunities to build one.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go Councillor Kim for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm of the same belief as well. I support the staff recommendation. You know, just going back to Councillor Thompson's example, when we were discussing the speed cushions, you know, there were several emails for and against, and when we decided to go with the experimental part of the process, and we had an open house, and unfortunately we only had one person attend. I believe that person was against speed cushions, ironically. And to, you know, see, you know, this many people in council for this issue, and I'm not sure what the ratio is, but certainly the passion is there on both sides. And so unless we do have that majority vote, as everyone else indicated, I don't think I can support this as well. And having lived in a house where, you know, surrounded by apple trees and other vegetable gardens, I did experience some rodents in my yard as well, and it wasn't a great experience, but, you know, who was I to ruffle feathers of my residents and of my neighbors and tell them not to have a garden in their backyard. So I'll support the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Perry, and then Councillor Gardner. Councillor Perry?
So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'll put alternative number 2 on the table. I'll add it as an amendment because it's not contradictory in any capacity.
I'll just be clear with the clerk if you don't mind. Yes, Mr. Clerk, please.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, it is not contrary to the main motion. I believe the alternate would be directing staff to pursue alternate and report back. Is that the amendment?
Yep.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Maracus? Comments?
So just speaking on it briefly, one thought I had through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey. What are your thoughts on hydro corridors? They're pretty underutilized. The growth underneath them, we're not talking about high trees, we're talking about Pretty Low Gardens, is there an opportunity to place a community garden under the hydro corridor?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I believe hydro corridors are an appropriate location. Our concern with that is an agreement with Ontario Hydro with regards to the use of those lands. Our experiences with them are that if we wish to use the hydro corridor, we pick up the cost of taxes on those lands, and they are fairly significant. So there may be cost, it might be cost prohibitive to go into a hydro corridor. We're finding that we are having some challenges extending some of our trail routes within those hydro corridors because of the prohibitive cost.
Thank you, Mr. Downey.
So I think it's fair to ask then, just for a little bit more information when reporting back on specifically that, just so we can find out what those costs are and so that we can be aware of that and make a fulsome
Well, there
decision.
may be new owners that might be a little more agreeable to it. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call a vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We'll go back to the motion as amended. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to thank Mr. Warenberg and Ms. Cook. I know that they've worked very hard on this, and of course they would feel disappointed. But I would like to thank you very much for your work, and the general intent of a community garden is wonderful.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Just because I am still in favor of the location, can we have 1 and 3, clauses 1 and 3 pulled together, and clause 2 asked separately?
Yes. We'll call a vote then on, we'll vote on 1 and 3, 3 being the amendment or the alternate that we voted on, and then we'll vote on the second clause separately. I'll call the vote on 1 and 3. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And number 2. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Still carries. Thank you very much, residents, for showing up. That concludes. Pardon? You do not have to stay. I'll just quickly poll the audience that are remaining. Is there any item that you would like us to move? Mr. Jones said it did pass on consent. Councillor Marakis mentioned it. I wasn't. All right, then, Council, Committee, we'll go to item 3, Northern 6 Waste Collection. That was pulled by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson? We have a motion?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Seconded. Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Thompson, would you care to start?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Simonovskis. Mr. Simonovskis, just to clarify for me, in reading this, it sounds like the plan is going forward to reduce the bag limits from 3 to 2 and to implement a bag tag program where people would have to purchase for $2 a tag to put more bags out. Is that correct?
Mr. Simonovskis? Got that bad mic again.
This is a joke, right? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Linda. I don't know why Mr. Simonauskas couldn't have done
It's
that.
it's a joke. I think they're just trying to.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Through Mr. Chair, so in the report on page 3 of the report, we summarize the various bag limits and fees for the Northern Six municipalities. And what the goal is to try to harmonize the bylaws as well as the bag limits and bag fees, only from an administrative and efficiency perspective. Within this report, my next step would be to bring a further report to council in 2016 to hopefully begin the discussion around how we might achieve that for Aurora. And speaking to the other partners who have different limits and different fees, this won't be a process that's going to happen quickly. It may be a year or two, or it may not change at all. But the commitment for the N6 partners was to at least try to work towards some harmonization. So this is just the beginning of the conversation, and there's no changes in the actual contract based on our current approved bylaw, other than the fact that we will have some discussions in the new year.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, you're not coming forward with a recommendation that we make those changes?
Not with this report, through you, Mr. Chair.
I know not in this report, but not in 2016?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we would bring back a report exploring the opportunities to see if we could move in this direction, if it makes sense for this community.
I guess I'm reliving the clear bag debate all over here, and my concern is that there's going to be significant change without really, engaging the community, and then we're back to that whole clear bag debate, and next thing you know, we're going to have people lined up to come to speak at the podium. So I think if there's going to be a significant change to our waste collection policy, we need to ensure we get out in front of this and engage the community, before coming back with a recommendation for council, because I think we've learned our lesson once.
If I may, through Mr. Chair, so the report that would come back to council would be the plan on how we would proceed. So it's not going to be it's not my decision. It's really just an opportunity to bring this forward to see if the community is in support of this type of direction. So it would be, I'm expecting this to be a 12 to 18-month process.
Thank you. Councillor? Any other comments? Councillor Perry?
So it's not really outlined in this report. For me, I think we're becoming more of an urban community as opposed to a rural community, and there have been demonstrated cost savings when implementing the trucks with the arms as opposed to going for bag pickup. Is there an option or an opportunity to, either in tandem or parallel to this RFP process, to look at those trucks with the arms that pick up the big bins?
Mr. Simonauskas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I was going to look at the previous report. We may have brought that conversation to this table in the previous report to this one in late 2000, or I guess early 2015. As an N6 community, both Aurora and Newmarket are almost fully urbanized and would benefit from that kind of a collection program. However, as an N6 collective, having two types of collection systems would not create the benefit of that collective. So as a group, the consensus was, both with conversations with the directors of public works as well as the CAOs at a recent workshop with the CAOs, was the preference was to stay with the blue box programs.
Thank you. Councillor?
With all due respects to the municipalities in the N6, if there is an opportunity for us and Newmarket to adopt a cheaper, more efficient way to collect garbage, I'm prepared to ditch the N6 on this initiative to ensure that our residents are taken care of as best as possible. Just to investigate the costs. If they come back more expensive, if they come back, if they do come back more expensive, at least we know, but to not even investigate because Georgina's not at the same level that we are, King's not at the same level that we are, East Gwillimbury's not at the same level, Wichert Stouffville's not at the same level. I think we're doing a disservice to our residents. So I think we need to look at and investigate what could potentially be in our best interest, despite the fact that, we go out and we tender in lots of situations. But if it's going to end up costing us more, My difficulty is that I don't know if it's going to cost us more, or if it's going to cost us less, and without us going out to investigate, I don't think it's the best way forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner? Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be surprised if the majority of our residents even know that we have a 3-bag limit, because as is said in the report, almost anything you put outside on the curb is collected by garbage at the moment. So it would have to involve a lot of education, and I think that going to a 2-bag limit may be the right way to go, because in fact we're trying to encourage people to recycle and reuse, and that could help in that endeavor. Mr. Simonovskis, on page 3, Georgina is only charging $1 for each extra bag, and yet they're making $160,000. Is that just based on a very large population, or is that a typo?
Mr. Simonovskis.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, that's not a typo. That is the revenue they collect. The 1-bag limit results in a large number of residents needing to buy tags for their additional waste.
Thank you. And I think somewhere here it says something about the N6 are pretty much agreeing on going to a 2-bag limit. There are 3 communities out of 6 that are doing 3 bags at the moment. So are all of those communities, are the 3 of us, not Aurora, but are the other 2 communities in favor of going to the 2-bag limit? Do you know that?
Mr. Simonovskis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, all the communities are in the same situation as we are. It would require a fairly extensive program to communicate that to the community. I think, if anything, the desire is to see if there's an opportunity to move in that direction, as this was identified as an opportunity for efficiency across the N6. Of course, if nothing changes with regards to bag limits, then the program will proceed just as it has in the current contract, and it works just fine. It's just one area that the group felt there may be some opportunities for some cost savings.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so following a bit on Councillor Perry's idea, do we have an idea of how much we could save by going this route?
Mr. Simonovskis, is an option?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, the bag limits is with the current collection process where the driver has to pick up the material off the curb and throw it into the truck.
Yes.
And Councillor Perry's request or proposal was to look at a mechanized operation, which is something similar to what the City of Toronto does, which is it's a different fleet, it's a different operation, and that would be a program which would shift from the current blue bins to the large bins with the lids that you would roll to the street. So it's a very different program, but that's something we could definitely explore.
Thank you. Actually, I misspoke. I meant Councillor Perry was asking about costing and saving money. So if my question would be, if we the 6 of us do go to a 2-bag limit, is there an idea of how much money we would save with that?
Mr. Simonovskis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, at this point in time, it's a combination of efficiency from the contractor, so it's how they price a contract, which is very difficult to estimate. I think the only number we could estimate would be an additional revenue stream for the town, as we have a 3-bag limit or really no limit, and we don't have a bag tag program, so that we would have an opportunity to increase our revenue stream with that type of program.
Thank you. My personal preference would be if we went to a $1 a bag, and also having a little farther down the page, actually at the end, to have a separate professional call center to take it completely out of the contractor's purview, because I know we've had a lot of problems where customers are required to call, in this case, Green for Life first, and if they don't get any satisfaction, then they come back to our service center, and I know there have been a lot of problems with that. So I'd like to take that completely out of the contractor's hands. And the last question is, you have mentioned that there would be provisions if the company is sold. But is there going to be recourse provisions if the contract is not to our satisfaction?
Mr. Simonauskas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there are penalties and provisions with regards to termination of the contract, similar to the current contract, and we've actually looked at that area more closely in consideration of what happened with this contract, both the sale of Turtle Island as well as the events that transpired 2 winters ago with the ice storm and the delayed services. So we have increased the opportunities for penalties and termination of the contract.
Very glad to hear that. That will help the councillors out.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd like to just call a quick question of privilege.
Oh, yes, what would that be?
Councillor Gartner had tried to clarify that it was my view with regards to bag limits and saving money, not at all what I intended or what I said. So I just wanted to clarify again that my statements were revolved around the implementation of a mechanical collection system for bins to save money, and it's not my interest nor my prerogative to move to a 2-bag limit.
Thank you, Councillor. And I will note that Councillor Gartner did qualify right away. She was talking about 2 bags, but you have added your clarification as well. So I appreciate that. Let's see, I've got Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was very informational reading Mr. Simonauskas' report. I wasn't aware that we had a 3-bag limit myself. I have been guilty of, on just one occasion, putting out 4 to 5 bags because there was a big gathering. But it's good to know we have 3, and I think it goes to Councillor Thompson's concern that we definitely need to have a good communication of, as people like myself were unaware. Now, this is going to be spoken about next week on the motion regarding procurement. On page 2 of item 3, on the first line, it says Newmarket will be leading the RRF, I'm assuming that's our RFP process on behalf of the N6. Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of are we just totally leveraging Newmarket and we don't have any input in terms of our efficiency practices or anything like that?
Mr. Simonauskas?
Certainly through Mr. Mayor, I can speak to the technical aspect of the process we're going to follow, and if Mr. Marr has any comments on the procurement side, I'd be happy to hear his perspective as well. With regards to the process, we are using Newmarket's procurement office as the agent to issue the tender or to issue the RFP and to do the sort of the policing of the process. And then the results of that tendering and RFP process will then be agreed upon by the municipalities and brought forward to the various councils based on the criteria that are identified, and as will be coming forward to this council through the process, to then make a recommendation to award. So that's how we would participate as an N6 group.
Will our council be, will we have a copy of Newmarket's procurement process so that we can vet it as well for our purposes?
Mr. Marr?
Through Mr. Chair, if council so wish to have that available, it certainly can be made available.
Would that be online in Newmarket?
It should be, and it can be requested directly if there was specific information council wanted.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yes, and lastly, you hit it well, Mr. Simonauskas, in terms of this could possibly be a revenue-generating operation. I mean, I think this is great for waste diversion. I don't think there'll be too many people disappointed. There may be a few, but not, I think majority of people would like to divert waste, and I have no problems with $3, $4, $5. If you exceed a certain baggage limit, we can always discuss that. But currently, are there other? At what point does the let's say if it's $2, does that all go to the contractor, or at what point will it can it come back to the town as a form of revenue?
Mr. Simonauskas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the bag tag programs are typically, well, for the N6, all of them are organized by the municipality, and all the fees are collected by the municipality and become revenues directly for the municipality. So in our case, we would be running the program, selling the tags, and collecting the revenue.
Thank you.
Great.
Councillor?
Yes, and sorry, one last comment. I agree with Councillor Perry with respect to having the option to go along with Newmarket. So I'm thinking, as we were talking about the budget last night, and the education portion never increases, for various reasons. And that helps to lower our overall rate. And I see a little bit of a parallel here in that Newmarket and Aurora, we don't have a great space or area. We're very condensed in population, whereas the other townships or municipalities are they're a lot larger, and the population is more spread out. So I'm thinking that the economies of scale won't necessarily apply in the usual way. And in fact, King and East Gwillimbury and Stouffville may stand to benefit from our being more dense. So just a comment there. So I would look forward to having that option out there to see what the Newmarket Aurora option would look like. Thank you.
Mr. Simonauskas?
Through Mr. Chair, if I may just comment on that principle, and I was not here when the 2006 contract was put together as well as many of the councillors at the table. My understanding at the time was the idea of doing an N6 contract was to generate some synergies as a larger group, understanding that some municipalities may benefit more than others, but that the collaborative felt that the overall benefit was more valuable than one larger municipality benefiting greater because of density versus a smaller, more rural municipality. So that principle is still implied in this cooperative. However, if council would like to look at either pursuing a contract separately or in partnership with other municipalities such as Newmarket, we would also have to seek, in this case, Newmarket's acceptance of that kind of a program and abandonment of the N6 cooperative. And just one last point, which we speak of in various reports throughout the waste reporting cycles, is that this contract resulted in an annual N6 savings of about $1 million a year, or about $10 million over the 10-year term for all N6 partners. So it was a fairly successful contract to begin with.
There was great savings that we realized right away. Also, if you introduce the carry-on, then you'd have to educate all over again and seek approval and engagement that everyone turn in your blue boxes, and we're delivering you a great big bin that you're going to have to roll out. So that would have to be all undertaken, as well as going to Newmarket and engaging their residents. So it would be quite a rollout. But the point has been taken. If you could investigate it, council has asked that might be included. We have a lot of time. I've got Councillor Marakis next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment. I'm not in favor of a 2-bag limit and bag tags. I think it provides a lower service level to the residents, and while it might be a revenue generator, it's money that's coming straight out of the residents' pockets, and I just see it as another tax on the residents. Those are just my comments.
Thank you. Any other further comments? Mayor Daw.
And at the risk of belaboring the discussion, we're receiving the report for information. We're taking no action. We will have all sorts of opportunities in the future to.
Thank you. And my only comment is when I do all my recycling, I have one bag every 2 weeks. So whether there's a 2 or 3 bag limit, it's minor to me. I think the people that don't recycle will be the ones that are the most concerned. If there's no other further comments, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of receiving? Opposed? I'm sorry, I have to ask again. I'll use one of Mayor Dawes' phrases at this time of the night. Hands high. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Council. All right. I think it was brought to my attention that we have Mr. Tree and Mr. Warenberg. If we could have a motion to bring item 6 forward next. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Tom. All those in favor? Opposed? Item 6 was brought by Councillor Perry. Thank you, Councillor Perry. Would someone move the item? Councillor Humphreys, seconded. Councillor Tom, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think it's important to note, number one, if we all were to look at page 17 of this, the map that we have in front of us, I'll let everybody turn to the page.
This map, Councillor?
That's the one.
Thank you.
I would just want to point out how severely underrepresented this part of the town is when we talk about trails and recreation space. And so it's a very good thing that we're adding another park to this location for this community. Now, with that said, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Trail Underpass A. I'm not in favor of the 1.75 million that we're looking to spend on this, considering that it is only 130 meters from the intersection. I think that's a fairly large sum of money. Granted, it's coming out of our development charges, but the development charges, they can be used in other locations. Looking at the area that this would service, I think that there are some other fairly well-traveled routes that if somebody, the only way that I see this specific underpass really being of a need to somebody is if they're trying to enter into the business park. And I think if they're walking to work, that's something great. But there are alternate routes that I think are quite easy to get to and quite easy to travel. So for me, I'm opposed to spending that kind of money on that specific trail. I've been opposed to it in the past. For consistency, it's not something
Councillor, if I could just, could you be specific when you say that underpass, please?
I've clarified on underpass A.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Thank you. Other speakers? Comments? Mayor Dahl?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, in our report on page 11, continuous 47, this goes back to August of 2013. The cost estimate at that point was 1.2 million, and the cost estimate in the current report, the November 3rd, 2015 report, is 1.75. So 50% more in 2 years. Could you give us a sense of, first of all, am I reading that correctly?
Mr. Downey, we could use some numbers, please.
To you, Mr. Chair, yes, you are. The numbers have increased. These are the numbers that are presented to us through the region. So we have provided council with the most up-to-date numbers that the region has provided to us. So we reported to council the estimates that the region gave to us. The region has now revised their numbers that they have as they move further into the development of their engineering drawings, and have revised their estimates and have then provided those increased estimates to us, and we are now providing those to council.
Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Downey, any sense? That's a 50% increase in 2 years. If I could get that for my mutual funds, I'd be ecstatic. Any sense of what's driven that incredible increase?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only thing I can state to you is that they provided us an estimate without without detailed drawings being provided to them. And as they have moved through the detailed process, they are now refining those numbers and presenting new numbers to us. So they're learning more, and they are adjusting their estimates.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Following on that, so is it unusual that they would now, that they wouldn't have taken into account that water main works? I mean, they're saying it is on page 3, the reasons, but is it unusual that they wouldn't have anticipated these things in the original costing?
Mr. Downey, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I like to state, to think I'm happy about this, I'm not. I would love to be able to challenge the region with regards to some of these numbers, but I'm not in a position to do so. I can only provide council the numbers that they give us. We have ran into similar situations when we were looking at the redevelopment of, or the reconstruction of St. John Side Road by Mackenzie Marsh. And we reported back to council that there were additional costs associated with that we had not anticipated. So this is a process that we are fairly familiar with, but we are not in a position where we can challenge those original estimates and hold them accountable. We can only report back to council that these are the estimates they are providing.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. And I didn't mean it as a criticism in any way to you. I just thought it was, I mean, the region must be pretty experienced in these kind of things. You would think. Okay. The other, and then there, of course, there is the other underpass A, which, as mentioned in the report, is a vital connection for many reasons. Expensive, but a vital connection, because I think you said that, or perhaps it's Mr. Tree's report, that many or all of the trails come together at this point. My concern about spending money on this has always been with respect to maintenance. It is not only a recreation endeavor, it is a transportation corridor under the region's transportation master plan. Are we going to maintain this in the winter anyway, in any form, or will this just be maybe a May to October transportation corridor?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not presented to council any upgrades to our service levels beyond what we presently maintain our trails to. So if council wished this to be a all-weather trail and maintained on a 12-month basis, then that would be an additional operating cost over and above our standard maintenance.
Councillor.
Thank you. So basically what we're saying is we are going to be spending this money for the residents to enjoy and use as transportation for perhaps 7 months out of the year. I think we need to be very clear about that when we're looking at spending this money. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but it is not a 12-month-a-year route.
Thank you. Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think we can find something better to spend 1.8 million on. I think if they're connected at underpass C and D, so I really don't see the need to spend that money on A. I mean, if the region was willing to kick in money, then we could look at it. But if we're footing the whole bill, I think we could find something better for that money. So that's just my comments.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey, if we don't use, it'd be a shame, I mean, we can't move the trails And so if we don't have the underpass, then people who want to bike or walk through these trails will have to go 110 meters to the St. John's and Leslie intersection, which is a shame that it's not a continuous thing, because I think one thing that I experienced trying to walk through or bike through our trails is that we always have to cross a street, which is kind of inconvenient, and it takes away from the enjoyment when you have to do that. But if we don't spend the money here, are there other ideal locations where we could take advantage of the DC funds that we could use to connect trails? Are there better options?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the Trails Master Plan that was approved by Council has identified other underpasses throughout the community. So yes, those opportunities are available in other areas within the community, but these have also been identified in the Trails Master Plan, so we're bringing forward these recommendations as presented in the Trails Master Plan approved by Council.
Would this be high on that? If you had to rank possible locations, would location A rank high?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in our opinion, yes. Or we wouldn't bring it forward. We think it's important. We recognize it's expensive, but as the delegate said, we have but one opportunity to do this, and if we choose to do this at a later date, it will be either cost prohibitive or next to impossible from a construction perspective. So the decision to move forward with this needs to be coordinated with the reconstruction of St. John's and Leslie Street, which, as Mr. Tree has indicated, was happening in 2016 and 17 respectively.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Councillor Thompson.
You know, we just sort of had this debate a few weeks ago at budget time, and I've always stated with regards to Underpass A that I wasn't supportive of it. I guess the one question that I do have is with regards to the clause that says the funding in the amount of $1.9 million, through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, the total cost of the 3 underpasses is, I guess, $2.4 or $2.5 million. But because we approved the $400,000 or $500,000 a few weeks ago for underpass C and D, you're only asking for an additional 1.9 to make up the shortfall. Is that correct?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
And so, you know, to me, I want to be clear on the wording and stuff, because to me, the total funding requested is that 2.5. But in the report on page 3, it says that on August 8th, 2015, we received revised costs from the region indicating that underpasses C and D would be $700 and some thousand, and underpass A would be $1.75 million. This information seemed to have come to us prior to our budget deliberations a few weeks ago, so I'm just wondering why that information wasn't presented to us at budget time when we made the decision with regards to the $450,000, $500,000 for underpass C and D.
Mr. Downey?
So, Mr. Chair, it was our error. That's the only thing I can say. We were remiss in providing council with this in a timely fashion with regards to the capital budget. This should have been reflected in the 2016 capital budget request. However, it was not. It was an error on our part, and I apologize for that. But the numbers have increased, and we were doing our very best to try to keep within our budget limitations, but unfortunately, we're not able to.
That's fine, and I understand these things happen. That's fine. Overall, I think that we're very fortunate in Aurora to have a fantastic Trails Master Plan, and we've done a great job along those lines. And while the goal is always to try and do as much as possible off-road, it's not always possible. And to me, it doesn't detract from the overall trail system to actually have to go on the road or on the asphalt paving that we have next to some of the sidewalks. And, you know, coincidentally enough, tonight we had former Mayor Tim Jones, who we named a piece of the trail after. And to the best of my knowledge, you have to walk along St. John's after you get off that trail. And it doesn't, to me, detract whatsoever, nor do other components where you have to go off-road. And as Councillor Perry had mentioned, I mean, it's only 130 meters from an intersection. We're talking about spending $1.75 million for an underpass. So really, per meter, that's like $13,000 per meter. All right, and so I think that is worthy consideration. Even though it's DC eligible and DC funds are there, DCs are still a finite amount of money to me. And I'd rather take that money and invest it in other ways for the trails, be it for accessibility reasons, be it for lighting reasons, be it for year-round use, however we want to looking at it, it comes back to the question of, is this the best use of the funds that we have to have this one underpass, or could we allocate it in different spots whereby it would have a greater impact or overall benefit? In my belief, it is, and so that's one reason that I've always spoken against Underpass A in terms of, you know, is there another way to use those DC funds, alternate the trail, however it should be. I've always been a proponent of that, not a favor of Underpass A, and so I can't support the motion the way it is. We can split it up and figure out some way. I'm still comfortable with C and D, and to me, I would see continuation of that connection between C and D by having that sidewalk/asphalt path, which the region will be building to connect the two pieces. That's my comments.